equations. I'm actually going to write down the hardest type you're going to see today. And then I'll do a couple of the easier ones just to make sure you know how to do them, and then we'll go probably to our homework. So I'm going to write down steps. So on this side I'm going to do the problem. Over here I'm going to write down steps that correlate with each step. The reason being, and these problems today aren't that hard. But if we do the math 2 stuff is when it starts to become really difficult. So this is why you need to know the steps. So here's your problem. The square root of 4w minus 23 plus 2, and the plus 2 is not underneath the root, equals 5. Okay, so this is called a radical equation. Step number 1, and I'm going to do them right here. Step number 1, get the radical alone. So before we can actually solve these, we have to get the radical alone. Carla, I'll put on a mask. Okay? You two don't. Okay, we have to get the radical alone. Could someone raise their hand and tell me how I can get the radical alone here? What would I have to do? I got to get rid of the 2. How do I get rid of it? Yeah, so basically you're just going to subtract 2 to both sides, and we're going to be left with the square root of 4w minus 23 equals 3. So that's step number 1. The radical is by itself now, right? The radical is all by itself. We don't have the plus 2 on the same side. You have to get the radical alone in order to do it. As soon as the radical is alone, you're going to square both sides to get rid of radical. So we're going to square both sides to get rid of the radical. So what that means is we're going to square both sides to get rid of the radical, and we're there. Step number 3. So when you square a square root, it cancels it, huh? Yeah, that's just all we're doing is we're squaring both sides to get rid of the root. Step number 3, solve for variable. Alright, so add 23 to both sides. 4w equals 32. Divide by 4. W equals 8. But those 3 steps are universal. Now, there's little wording differences when we get to the Math 2 thing. And I'm actually, I am going to do a Math 2 problem for you in just a second on these, just to let you see kind of what they look like. But these 3 steps are universal with any radical equation. No matter what they look like or whatever kind of complexity they are, these 3 things are the steps you're going to use. Okay, I want you guys to try one on your own now that you have that one. So let's do 5y minus 26 plus 2 equals 5. Solve that one on your own. Today's National Take Your Son to Work Day.
Here's your son.
Should have brought my son. Right? That's almost the exact same type of problem here.
Yeah, I know.
Should have paid attention to what I was writing. 2s and 5s on the mind. I did a problem later in first hour that had a lot of 2s and 5s too. Okay. We need more time. Who do I want to call him first? Hey, what do you do first?
You have to get the radical by itself, so subtract 2.
Okay, good. Now that just happened to be the same numbers. Does that mean every single problem on your homework today is going to have a 2 and a 5? Maybe. Okay. All right. William, what do I do next? Step number 2. Did you not write it down inside your journal? Yeah. Spencer, step number 2. Square both sides. So that's going to give us 5y minus 26 equals 9. Lane, now what? Okay, how do I do it? Okay, so we get 5y equals 35. Maddox, what's our answer? Perfect. So y is going to equal 7. Who got it right? Raise your hand. Okay, now these can look as easy as this. I've seen these problems before. Actually, believe it or not, this problem that I'm going to show you right now was on the actual ACT test. Not your pre-ACT, but the actual ACT test. It was like this. The square root of x minus 1 equals 4. So all we're going to do is the radical already alone. So at that point, we just square both sides. X minus 1 equals 16, and then just add 1. That was an actual question on the ACT test, just barely. No, I don't know who got it. I would assume people got it wrong or they don't put it on there. Usually the easy questions, like 80% of people get them right. The harder questions, it's like 25% get it right or something, or 20% get it right. What's really funny is when someone gets like a 34, but they miss like that one. Because they like rushed through it or subtracted 1 instead of added 1 or something. Because you know multiple choice that had like A is 17, B is 16, C is 15, D is 57, right? Yeah, it's like negative, or it'll have like negative, something like that. So, okay. And also, we can even get it a little bit easier. You may even see one that looks like this. The square root of x equals 4. Which then you just square both sides to get x equals 16. All right, any questions on those type of radical equations? Okay, don't write this down inside your journal. I'm going to show you one of your Math 2 ones. Okay? Drained it. I'm going to find one here off your homework. You won't get this on your homework, but I will. Okay. Pay attention closely though, so at least you have this in case during the course of the weekend I get the math gods tell me I need to teach it to you. Alright, so this is Math 2 radical equation. Not a Math 1, this is a Math 2. Come on now, you can do it. Zoom in. Black dot time. There you go. I know, I was hoping I didn't have to do it in the middle, but it's going to make me. You're guessing x equals 8, huh? Anybody want to else take guesses?
X equals 8.
Well,
Wait, I have to look it up.
Yep. X equals 14. X
equals
equals 13 equals a number.
it does!
No way. I win.
I'm going to take a guess.
Nope. He already has the answer probably.
I do. Alright, I'm going to guess 6. It is 6.
I guess.
Okay, after you've done enough, you can do them in your head. Alright, here we go. Alright, first things first. We're going to follow the steps. Is the radical alone?
Yes.
Okay, what's the next step? Square both sides. Here we go. So this side is negative 2x plus 28. Hey, this is interesting though. I'm going to show you guys this. X minus 2 squared is not, a lot of you are going to, does anyone want to take a guess how to do this? Maddox?
Square X and square 2, right?
Close. That's usually what people say. This is usually the answer people want to do.
Oh,
That's wrong.
But you can't square. You have to, like put another one in parentheses and multiply them together, so it's like, what?
What's it called though? What are we doing?
No. No.
We just barely learned it. Foiling.
I was there.
X minus 2 times x minus 2. We have to FOIL it to get x squared minus 4x plus 4 after we combine the middle terms. X squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4, which combines to there. Now, yeah.
So if you square and it's so if you square one of those, right? I don't know what it's called. If you just make two of them and put them together.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. This is called a binomial.
Okay, that's what.
Yep. Two-term thing is a binomial.
Oh, so it's only when like there's a multiple or divide you can just like.
Yep.
You only do it for a binomial.
Only FOIL binomials. Okay. So this is, remember we learned about conjugates? This is almost a conjugate, right? But this one doesn't have opposite signs in the middle. These are the same sign. So the difference is the middle terms don't cancel, but they're the same. Does everyone see that? Okay, so now we're to here. Now this is where it gets really, really tricky with Math 2 stuff. Because I honestly believe that we could get to there with you guys right now. Because I've taught you a little bit how to FOIL. I told you you'd see it again in a little bit. The hard part is now you're going to do something you've never done before. Our goal right now is not to get x alone. Our goal right now is to get the equation set equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 2x to both sides, and we're going to put it underneath its common term and subtract 28 to both sides. So we're going to have x squared minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Does everyone see that? X squared, negative 4x plus 2x is negative 2x. 4 minus 28 is negative 24 equals 0. So this right here, this is, you're going to see this so much in Math 2 that it's going to scare you. This right here is the most, you will see, this is called a trinomial. And we're going to learn 7 ways to solve this. 7 different ways in Math 2 to be able to solve this. Right here. There's one way that's really easy, but for some other reason, sophomores, it's like 20% of the class gets it. And I don't know why, but it takes till a lot of the students are like in Math 1050 to all of a sudden realize, holy crap, that way is a lot easier. And then there's a way that takes a lot longer, but the 80% of the students do it the longer way. So I'm going to do it both ways, just to show you. The first way. So I'm going to do 2 of the 7 ways. I could do all 7. You want me to do all 7? No. I could do it. We can graph this. That's one of the ways is graphing it. Guess what shape it makes?
A triangle?
Hey, I just didn't see that.
It's a parabola. Okay, alright, so here we go. I'm going to do it 2 ways. We're going to use the dot for the middle. I'm going to first factor it. So one of you guys mentioned factoring. I'm going to factor this sucker right here. And then over here, I'm going to use the quadratic formula over there. Okay, factoring. Here we go. This is the easy way. And when I show you, you're going to be like, I could do this. I could do this. But I don't know why. And everyone can do it. Everyone thinks it's the easiest thing in the world. But as soon as we move on past chapter 1, section 6, no one wants to do factoring anymore. Everyone wants to use the quadratic formula. Okay? All right, here we go. So there's 3 different terms here. This is our A term, our B term, and our C term. And they have numbers. B is negative 2. C is negative 24. What would A be? 1. A is 1. Does everyone see that? So if A equals 1, we can look at C. We're going to get C and we're going to put it out here like this with a line. This is called a testing area. We have to find 2 numbers that multiply together to be negative 24. So before I tell you the next part, where do they end up? Carly, can you tell me 2 numbers that multiply together to be 24? Yeah, you drilled it right there, by the way. You even got the right answer. Now look, if you didn't know it, this is a test area. We list out all the numbers that multiply together to be 24, right? Now, and then you have to think, okay, I need two numbers that multiply together to be negative 24 and add together to be B. So two numbers that multiply together to be C and add together to be B. So Carly drilled it. I don't know if she knows she drilled it. Did you know you drilled it? You drilled it. Is negative 6 and 4. If you think about negative 6 and 4, negative 6 times 4 is negative 24, and negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. And negative 2 is the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to make, these are called my FOIL parentheses. Okay, ignore this negative 24 now. Now we know, and we're just going to plug in the two numbers we found. Negative 6 and 4. Now, this is called factoring. If I went through and FOILed this again, if I FOILed x minus 6 and x plus 4, I would go right back to there. Haley?
What if the A is not one?
That's a lot harder. We'll do one of those another day. Maybe later today, maybe not. If A is not 1, then you have to multiply A and C together and find two numbers that multiply together to be that and add together to be B. But instead of just going right to here, you have to go to 4 terms. And they have to do a thing called factor by grouping to get down to 1. So
If it was a really nasty problem, this would take forever.
then I use this. If this thing was really ugly, meaning I know, so I can look at a problem and immediately tell if it's going to factor. If it's going to factor, I factor it. If it's not going to factor, I immediately go to this. I never graph them. There is weirdos out there that'll graph to solve these. They're called serial killers. Okay, it's the honest truth. So, but one of my really good buddies that I went to college with, that I took a bunch of classes with, he would actually solve them by graphing. And he always would want to race me, right? Even though we're factoring, I can factor in like 4 seconds, and he can graph in about a minute. But he swore he could. One day I'm going to beat you. You're never gonna beat me, dude. So as soon as you get to here, we're going to set each. These are called factors. These are called factors. That's why it's called factoring. We're going to set each factor equal to 0. And we're going to get x equals 6 and x equals negative 4. Now, I told you the answer at the very start of this. What was the answer? 6. But here's an issue. Why is there 2 answers? Does anyone know why is there 2 answers?
Because there's a square
Yeah.
involved.
That's exactly it. If you have a squared, it's 2 answers. What about if there was a cube? There'd be 3 answers. What about if there's to the 4th?
4 answers.
Now, there's 4. The correct word is 2 possible answers. 3 possible answers. Right? So this one, I told you one of the answers. I told you the answer is 6, right? But I got 2 answers. So guess what you have to do? You have to go back to your original problem and check your answers. So if you plug 6 in, negative 2 times 6 is 12, plus 28 is, that's wrong, negative 12 plus 28 is 16, which is square root of 16 is 4. 6 minus 2 is 4, so we know that one works, right? Because you get 6 equals 4 equals 4. If you plug negative 4 in, we get 8 plus 28, which is 36, so that's 6. But negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. See how those don't equal each other? So that one's not a true answer. So technically this thing only has 1 answer. Even though we have 2 possible answers, that's great. So, yeah. Yep.
Is one of, like, can they both not be the answer?
Yep.
That's dumb.
Yep. That's why it's called 2 possible
So
answers.
you just have to go through all that just to know.
Yep. And then guess what the answer is? No solution.
Okay.
Guess what that means? If you were to graph it, that means the graph would look like this.
So in Alex
Up here.
tried no solution first.
No.
Yeah, we can,
You could always try, but I can tell you on Alex, it's like 2% of problems have no solution.
we can see.
It's very rare. I think I've seen like 1 problem in like 3 years where there's, okay, oh, that's a no solution type of problem. It means it never crosses the x-axis. So if it never, x-axis is where all the answers lie. That's why it's called domain. The main domain is the x-axis. It's where all the answers lie. All right, one more quadratic formula.
Wait, that was math 2 you said?
This is math 2. Yep.
Okay.
All right, you ready? You're not doing this. Maybe next week. If the gods of math whisper to me over the weekend to teach it to you, then we do it. X equals. Here's the quadratic formula.
Oh, good. I already gave up.
Hey, but guess what? Every one of you could do this already.
No solution. What?
I will bet your money.
Is it 6?
It is 6, but I will tell you this, that you guys, listen. Every single one of you could do this right now. You want to know why? Because you guys know how to plug numbers into a formula. You already know what B is. What's B?
Oh, the 2.
Yeah, it's -2. So B is -2. What's A?
1.
1. What's C?
Negative 24.
All you're going to do is plug all these into your equation. So negative B, which is negative of a -2, plus or minus the square root of B squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A.
I'll take your money.
You could.
I'll take your money.
X equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus, is that 96? 4 times -24, yeah? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Over 2, which gives us x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 100 over 2. What's square root of 100?
10.
X equals 2 plus or minus 10 over 2. So you have two different equations because we have two possible answers. You get 2 plus 10 over 2, which gives you what?
6. 4 times 4. Just like
And 2 minus 10 over 2, which gives you -4. Which answer is right? You don't need to worry about this. Hey, so now look, I did that 100 miles an hour quadratic formula. You guys would never be able to do it that quick. But hey, this is an example of math 2 stuff, and this is what you're going to see. We spend a long time in math 2 learning how to factor. I make you sing a song in math 2 about the quadratic formula.
Me and Beck have already done it.
Yeah.
I did
Okay.
it with Paige.
So it's awesome. I love math. The quadratic formula. We all learned the pop goes the weasel. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 is equal all over 2a. There's not a cool song for factoring. So, but I can tell you this. I can look at this and I can do that in my head. If you use I can't do this in my head. This is 100, so I'm prepping you now. This is 100 times easier than this. Well, now listen, I did this really fast. You're not going to be able to do it that fast. Right? It takes students a lot longer. I whizzed through that 100 miles an hour. This right here, I think it's pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to give you guys assignments. I'm not going to have math 2 stuff on it. Just the math 1 stuff. Who's calling me? This thing, I don't know. I'll have to change it. Hello, Shark. Oh, I'm teaching my head off. Yeah, maybe it's calling.
Is it called homework 1? Why is it just homework 1?
Give him a call.
And it's due today.
I don't know. I don't have that power. He'll do it if you call him.
Homework 1, let's go.
Just call him. He'll do it.
Easy stuff like questions.
I haven't seen Anna that excited about math in a while. Teaching her that math 2 stuff. You were excited.
I was not excited.
Oh, this is easy. I think that was the easiest. What
This is titled Homework 1, huh?
And it's due today.
Well, it's not really due today.
If Bo doesn't watch it, oh yeah, you're
I'm changing it right now. I just got it posted before I answered the phone call. Titled 8-4. I just changed it.
If Bo doesn't watch the video, I can probably help him.
They should watch it.
He should, just say.